Hey guys, this is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, and Michigan has scored another big win on the recruiting trail. Before we dive into that, though, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $29.99 until August 31st of this year. That gets you premium insider recruiting information, team information, basketball recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, and so much more. For everything Michigan athletics, sign up for the Wolverine.com today for just $29.99 until August 31st. You also get to be part of a great message board community over on the Ford. Come interact with more than 8,000 unique individual users and share your opinions, including on the newest Michigan commit, Cole Sullivan. 3-star linebacker out of Pittsburgh Central Catholic. Now, a lot of you Michigan fans might not even be very familiar with Cole Sullivan. He's not a prospect that was talked about much in relation to Michigan up until about a week and a half ago or so. He named Michigan in his top 5, but Notre Dame was considered the longtime leader in his recruitment. A lot of predictions were in for the Irish to land him out of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately for Notre Dame, Michigan swooped in and took command of this recruitment, much in the same way they did with Gerard Smith. Now, as you guys should remember, Gerard Smith was a prospect that not a lot of Michigan fans were talking about. Not a lot of Michigan writers, including me, were really writing about him up until a few weeks before he committed and the tide really turned. And I think it caught Notre Dame off guard when Gerard Smith started to trend towards Michigan. And I think it caught Notre Dame off guard when Cole Sullivan started to trend towards Michigan. So I put in a pick for Sullivan right as the momentum started to shift. The Wolverines hosted him for an unofficial visit and really moved the needle there. But it kind of flew under the radar. You know, you think Catholic kid, last name Sullivan. It's usually a guy that Notre Dame would win, but he really fell in love with Michigan's program, the campus, the academics, the defensive scheme, and just what Michigan can offer both on and off the field. And, I think a lot of people compare Michigan and Notre Dame as similar type programs, but they're also different in a lot of ways as well. Obviously, I should know since I spent a sad 3 months on that beat. But I think that Michigan is just rolling right now on the recruiting trail. I think things are a little more vibrant at Michigan would probably be the best word to describe versus Notre Dame. Definitely more vibrant, more fun. And I think right now with what Michigan's doing on the recruiting trail, with what they're doing on the field, I think that really helps shift the momentum for Cole Sullivan. So who is Cole Sullivan? Since, again, a lot of you guys might not be familiar. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, 3-star prospect, ranked as the number 58 linebacker in the country, the number 519 overall prospect nationally, and the number 14 recruit in the state of Pennsylvania. All of that is according to the On3 industry ranking, which weighs the 4 major recruiting services. On3 has him as a 3-star, same with 24/7, same with Rivals. ESPN actually does not have him ranked yet. But when you look at Cole Sullivan and you ask yourself, well, why are they taking him if he's not ranked that high, and you already have a ton of commits in the class and numbers are probably starting to get a little tight? Well, this is going to be a bigger class. It wouldn't surprise me if the number does get past the usual standard 25. But on top of that, when you look at Cole Sullivan, he has really good film. I think he's a really underrated player. I don't know exactly what he's going to be, and that's okay because it's the same thing with Mason Curtis. Mason Curtis is about the same size, probably, maybe 5-10 pounds lighter, but about the same height, weight. He's a similar type prospect in the sense that he doesn't have to be pigeonholed. So right now, Mason Curtis is penciled in as an edge, but he can be a linebacker, which is where he's listed on On3. He could be a big box safety. There's so much you can do with a guy like Mason Curtis. And when I look at Mason Curtis, I just have him penciled in as a defensive athlete. And it's the same thing with Cole Sullivan. I think he's a defensive athlete. I don't even think you classify him as a linebacker because he is a guy that could be a big box safety. He is a guy that could come off the edge. He's a guy that could be a Mike, could be a Will. He just has so many different avenues that he could go in. And I think that a lot of that, and the same thing with Mason Curtis, will just depend on development in the Michigan strength and conditioning program. I think it's interesting that Michigan has been willing to take more athletes this year, or, position flexibility guys, because Ben Herbert can turn them into so many different things. When you have arguably the best strength and conditioning coach in the entire country, the possibilities are endless. And obviously Michigan believes in themselves as coaches and developers on the field as well. But I think it starts in the strength and conditioning program with guys like Curtis and Sullivan. So I think Michigan just really likes the film. I think they like the versatility. I think they like the athleticism, the physicality that you see when you pull up his highlights. So I do think there's a lot to like about Cole Sullivan. Now, I would like to give him an in-person eval. I would like to dive a little more deep into maybe watching a couple of full game films before I give my evaluation. I do think it's interesting that all the sites have him rated as basically a middling 3-star. But I think there's some upside here. And like I said, I like the versatility, especially when you're a program like Michigan. And I know a lot of people have asked, well, is this going to affect linebacker numbers? Is Michigan not feeling as confident about Jeremiah Beasley or Aaron Childs? Like, Michigan still feels confident with both of those guys right now. I would expect both of those guys to end up in the class. I just think you look at Sullivan as a defensive athlete. Same thing with Mason Curtis. And I think it's a nice win over Notre Dame, which obviously had a lot of success over Michigan last cycle. Michigan, second time in a row, like I said earlier, beating out Notre Dame for Gerard Smith, now beating them out for Cole Sullivan. I think the tide's starting to turn a little bit there. And it's also nice to see Michigan getting into Western Pennsylvania. That's an area that breeds a lot of talent that I think could be very Michigan-friendly. And it was an area that was being recruited by Matt Weiss, who wasn't the best recruiter. So I think now that Kirk Campbell has taken over as that area recruiter, and now that you have guys like Grant Newsome just doing some recruiting in the state of Pennsylvania in general, Chris Partridge as well, who was obviously a big factor in this recruitment, I think the door is open for Michigan to get more wins in the western part of Pennsylvania and in Pennsylvania overall. So for more Michigan recruiting information and more thoughts on Cole Sullivan, make sure to head over to thewolverine.com. Subscribe today for just $29.99 until August 31st. Hit the like button and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is completely free.